I would say Jordan Peterson is probably a morally good person. He's a family man. He loves his children, loves his wife. And I think it does a great service to his community. But that's not to say that he doesn't have some ideas that I don't disagree with, particularly on the political sphere. Like and this is the point, him differing from my political beliefs or me differing from his or whatever it might be or anybody else's doesn't fundamentally throw out everything you can take of value from that person. And that is where I think we fall down a lot. So I've friends of mine who I would consider have very wildly different belief sets to me, but it doesn't mean that all their ideas are bad to me. And in the same way, they probably recognize that not all my ideas. I actually had this conversation recently enough with a friend of mine, a girl that's in powerlifting, and she'd be much more, like in terms of like relationship structure, would probably want something a lot more progressive than I would. Like I would definitely prefer to have more traditional family setting where like my wife or girlfriend would raise my children. Again, I'm progressive enough to say I'm not going to tell you can't work, but I would love to be in a place of abundance that if you decided you didn't want to work or only wanted to work part-time, I want to be able to support that because I think it's potentially the best scenario for the children, right? But then this translated to her as Ian only believes in traditional gender roles. And I was like, no.
Misogyny.
Well, it didn't get that far, but you can do what you want if it works for you. I'm saying this is my value set and I'm not inflicting my value set on you. And just to bring it back to what you were talking about earlier, I do think that's what people want to do. It's your value set versus mine and only one can win. It's like, does it have to be that way? Could we not find common ground where like fundamentally we want the best for our families, let's just say, or ourselves or our lives? Why do they have to come at the expense of each other? Now, in some ways, maybe there are things that just can't coexist. But I think the problem is we're not even trying in many cases. Not when I say we, I don't mean you and me. We're here having the conversation. We're not shouting at each other and we're not shouting at anybody else. And I think that's the key. It's finding ways and means that we can all coexist in what is fundamentally a very big planet. Like we don't all have to be. And I think that's kind of the one problem with social media. The reality is if you want to see all these problems vanish, turn this thing off and just look at the people who are around you and you'll be sound. But again, that's not the world we live in. That's a very easy thing to say. But again, the cat's out of the bag, the worms out of the can. This is everywhere now. It's something we probably want to deal with, something we probably want to have these conversations about. Incidentally, you mentioned Jordan Peterson, and it's actually a very interesting thing. Jordan Peterson has a message that I really like, and I think the reason it resonates with men is there's one particular quote that I like from him, and it's, seize opportunity where responsibility has been abdicated. So where people have taken a lack of responsibility, even to give this an actual picture for people, in your job where somebody sees something that's wrong, and they go, it's not my job. That is an opportunity for you to seize. You can take the reins in whatever that is and be the person that solves that problem. Your dad, you mentioned, big problem solver. He saw opportunity where no one was taking responsibility for something and he took it. Now, I love that idea because I do think part of the problem with most people is they don't want to take responsibility for anything. For themselves primarily, and that's usually where you just want to start. Just take a bit of responsibility for yourself, whatever that looks like to you. I'm not going to project my value set of responsibility onto you, but find a way you could treat yourself a little bit better, be a bit more accountable to yourself, and frankly, hold yourself to a standard and say, I'm going to at least meet this minimum standard every single day. Now, there is a point I don't disagree with, but I think Jordan Peterson misses half of the point, but I definitely want to get your thoughts on the responsibility thing, because I know that resonates a lot with you.
Responsibility for me is, it's like it immediately lights up all the areas of my brain because it's now at this point in my life, and it wasn't before, and I'll explain that. It is now one of the sole drivers for almost every decision I make in my life. Is like, just like you said, and I hadn't actually framed it the way you framed it there, which is really nice. Is there a place that I can take responsibility here?